Okay, this is inspired by Wilkinson. Alright, so the track Tonight by Wilkinson has a pretty interesting Reese. It's actually based around a square wave, not a saw like most Reeses, so it gives it a pretty unique texture. We're going to be recreating that today, but first you should go check out the original of the track. I'll link it in a card somewhere around here. So the bass we're going to be creating today sounds like this. And it's got that unique texture because it's based around a square, not a saw. So it has different harmonics than most Reeses that you hear in those sort of liquidy tunes. One thing to mention is that this patch and some others are up available on my Patreon. So if you want to grab the patch from there, that's an option for you. Let's jump into Ableton and start recreating this. Okay, so we're here in Ableton and I'm going to play the bass again and flick through each of the panels in Serum so you can see what's going on. And you'll also be able to hear it soloed. Here we go. So it's a pretty straightforward sound. There's not really too many moving parts to it. Let's recreate it from scratch and I will walk you through that. So we'll hit Menu and Init Preset. And so now we have a sawtooth. So we're going to want to change that out to a square wave. The best way that I like to do that is to hit Analog and Basic Shapes, and then just use the Wavetable Position knob to scan until we find a square wave. Now also what I did on the previous patch was I set the octaves to -2. So we're going to do that there now. And so when I play a key, we get a square wave. Perfect. We're starting to get there. What we want to do is increase the unison, and we're going to increase the unison to an uneven number. So we're going to go up to 3. And the reason we're using an uneven number of voices is so that we get that solid center voice. So you can see that with an uneven number of voices, there's one on each side and one in the middle. If I bring it down to 2, you can see we get one on each side. With 2 voices, it sounds like this. If you're using headphones, you'll be able to hear clearly there's one on the left and one on the right, and it doesn't sound like there's a center sound at all. If we bring up to 3, we get a nice, rich, strong center and 2 voices on either side. You could also use 5. Introduces a little more movement to the sound. I'm going to stick with 3 for today. But the important thing is to use an uneven number of voices so you get a nice, strong center voice. That's pretty much it for oscillators. That's all we need today. We're going to use a filter, and we want to use a low pass 24 dB. You can use the MG or the low 24. They'll have slightly different characteristics, but let's go with MG low 24. And we could even bring the cutoff down a little. But let's tune that as we go. So we'll step over to the Effects tab now, and we want to give it a little bit of distortion. Now, to create something similar to the Wilkinson bass, I really liked diode 2 on here. So it roughs the sound up a bit, maybe less mix. I'll bring it down to 0 and then bring it in until I can hear it. I think somewhere around there it sounds a lot thicker and it's doing what I want it to do. I'll turn it on and off a few times so you can check that out. So we gain a bit of volume, but overall we kind of like rough up the sound a little. The next thing we want to do is use a compressor in multiband mode, which doesn't have a particularly pronounced effect, but it brings up a bit of the mids and gives it a little more top kind of texture. I've increased the gain so it's about the same loudness. You can hear all that extra harmonic movement coming through. So now we want to filter that out again. And we want to use a pretty strong filter again. So a low pass 24. I think somewhere around there. We're going to dial this in a little bit further. Okay, so now if we play our bass loop, it should sound reasonably similar. It's close. Let's put it into mono mode. If you're building this for use in another tune, I would recommend legato mode. So let's turn it on with a little bit of portamento time, and I'll play some notes. So you can hear how it slides through those. One of the things which makes the bass kind of a little more useful is if we use this note parameter here, this will allow us to scale parameters based on the incoming note. So if I play a low note, we'll lower whatever parameter we assign this to, and a higher note will increase it. So let's drag note over to the second cutoff on this filter over here. And I'm going to press a low F and we'll just see what that does to the sound. Maybe down further, about there, and then I'll come up an octave. Cool. So it's raising the cutoff when I bring up the note. So about there sounds okay. We could try bringing it further up. Yeah, I think that sounds kind of okay there. Let's leave it there. And we can also modify the first cutoff as well. So let's try that. There we go. So as we push higher notes, we get the filter cutoffs opening up further. So for macros, let's introduce some further cutoff variation. So we'll drag macro 1 over to the first cutoff and we'll call it cutoff. And we'll do the same on the effects page. We'll drag cutoff over to the main cutoff here. So now when we push a low note, we can also wind up the cutoff on the filters. Now, I think what we might do is jump into the matrix and change this so that it's bidirectional, and then bring it to the center position. So that means that we've got the option of bringing the filter down or up like this. Which would give us a lot of variation in whatever track we were using this in. Now, another variation that I like to add to this sound is a bit of wobble. So let's set up this macro by calling it wobble. And we're going to use LFO1 to modulate the filter cutoff just a little on first filter. We'll come over to the effects filter and do the same thing here, just a little, which now sounds like this. So we're moving the filter cutoffs around. If we grab both of these LFO modulations, we can use an aux source of macro 2, which is our wobble macro. And now with it at the lowest position, it doesn't wobble at all. But as we bring this up, it'll wobble more and more. So between those, you can kind of create some interesting cutoff movements in your sound. So this is the one that we just built, and I'll play it now. And this is the one that I had saved from earlier. So they're incredibly close. So I've saved that as Wilkinson Tonight 3, and that's how you build a really versatile square wave Reese for use in sort of liquid D&B. Okay, so that was inspired by Wilkinson. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you introduced some square Reeses into your tunes, and I'll catch you in the next video.